Good morning, friends, and welcome to the third episode of Tabletop Humans, where I invite other humans in the tabletop space to chat about the work they do, whether it's game design, actual plays, charity work, what have you. We play a little party game and then we have you home by 9. I am your host, Jess the Human. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and today's human guest is Mayanna Berrin, aka Be Mayanna on the internet. Mayanna is a writer for animation and games, a voice actor and comedian. She can be seen on StoryQuest as the incredible Una, New York by Night as Seraph, and so many other amazing TTRPG actual plays. I am literally so thrilled to have Mayanna on this morning to chat about her experiences writing professionally and how they translate into her TTRPG performances and all of the amazing work that she's doing with StoryQuest, not to mention what her Good Morning Proclamation is going to be today. With that being said, Mayanna, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. Can you please introduce yourself and let us know what you do as a human inside and outside of the tabletop space?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Mayanna. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a writer. I'm a voice actor. I'm an improv person. I play a lot of D&D. I do actual play things. Trying to think of other hobbies that I have. That's all about all I have time in my life for. I'm trying to finish the Mistborn trilogy. That's me right now.
Amazing. You know, I haven't started Mistborn yet. I'm rereading the Stormlight Archive, but I
Nice.
do have Mistborn on my to read list. So you are literally doing it all. You are so incredibly busy and you're still keeping time for yourself to read. So
I do
kudos
my
to
best.
you.
It's all audiobooks. I have to do it while I do laundry.
Hey,
That's
that's
the only way it's
still
going to get done.
reading. I mean, you are still consuming that content. So hats off to you because
Thank you.
you're making time for it. I love
I do
it.
my best. Hell yeah.
Well, between being so busy between the tabletop shows and your writing and your reading and your convention appearances and like five other things that you listed off that I'm not remembering immediately,
Don't even worry about it.
you are you're busy and I love
Mhm.
it so much. But before I want to talk about that, I want to like rewind to your past a little bit to
Mhm.
start with when you started performing, because I believe it was when you were young.
Yes.
And so I'd love to hear about how that passion for the arts and for performing really got started with you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Way back. So my first role was when I was like 6, and my school put on a musical version of The Little Red Hen, and I was like, okay, cool. And my teacher pulled me aside, and she like put her big hands on my little hands, and she was like, Mayanna, I want you to play the Little Red Hen. And I was like, I was like me, my little 6-year-old brain. I was like, wow, this is so unexpected. But it was very fun, and I got to sing, and it was very silly. I wore a big felt bag filled with like wrapped up newspaper, like balled up newspaper to be a little chubby little hen, and it's all ancient history from there. But yeah, I think I didn't really lock in on wanting to be a performer professionally until I was in high school, and I went to go to New York. Our high school got to go on a trip, and I'm originally from there, but I had lived in Michigan for a while, so it was like nice to be back in the city. And we went to go see the 39 Steps, which is a like satirized play version of an Alfred Hitchcock movie called The 39 Steps, and it was so funny. And it was like 80 characters, but they were all played by like 4 actors who kept like quick changing, very far, yeah, very farcical, very high energy. And I was like, that is so cool. And I think it was the first time I thought about like performing as like a job that I could like have. And so I finished high school. I auditioned for the University of Miami. And so I did their BFA theater performance program. So like very intensive program. All of my classes, I had to take like one gen ed class every year. But for the most part, it was like 8 to 6, like all theater all the time. So I did that, got my degree, and then really loved doing improv as well. And I actually started doing improv when I was in high school. So I was doing that when I was like 16. And so between like doing improv comedy, doing theater performance, I went to Chicago for a summer to do an intensive study at IO, which stands for Improv Olympic, which is just like one of the bigger, more established improv theaters out there. And then went from there and then moved to Los Angeles to try and become an actress. And that Didn't go great. It was very silly, but basically like acting super competitive, and I didn't have a lot of money, and so I took a step back from like screen acting, and I was like, okay, well, let me figure out what I can do. And so I was taking classes at Second City and finished their conservatory program, and then I started writing like sketch comedy. And so I was on a sketch team for a little bit. We'd perform at Second City, and then the pandemic happened. And then now we're up to 2021, and that was when I got my first like tabletop opportunity, which was for New York by Night. And so like because I had this background and I have like this, you know, expertise specifically in like improv, I think that really helped kind of get me in the room to at least like show that I can make stuff up and be present and do immersive type stuff. And then learning the vampire system, which was really, really fun. And now I play vampire all the time. And yeah, and so that it all kind of folded in on itself. But I think I found a really nice niche within it where it's like I don't think that I was ever going to be competitive as a like traditional actor. You know, typecasting, all that kind of stuff. I never really found myself fitting quite in the right niche with television and all of that, but like being able to make my own characters and carve out a nice space for myself where I can tell stories and play characters in a way that I think is still very fulfilling for me has been really, really nice.
It's a really fun and interesting journey that you've taken to get to where you are right now. And
Yeah.
so, something that I'd love to hear you talk about, because you do write professionally and you've done so for quite some time, is
Mhm.
when you write professionally for shows that you're on, do you think that that helps you when you're writing your own TTRPG characters? And what
Absolutely.
is that process like? Is it similar between the two mediums, or are you picking and choosing things in one to take to the other?
That's a great question. I think, yeah, one of the things that's really been paramount for me with writing is why does anybody want anything like that? And I think when you're earlier on your writing journey, whether it be a book or a video game or whatever it is, I think that we forget and take for granted that a main character has to want something, and they have to like pursue that want to the ends of the earth. And I think like we as viewers and consumers intrinsically understand when that process is happening. Like you like One Piece, for example. Like we know what Luffy wants. It's very clear. And so anything else can happen, but we know that at the end of the day, like Luffy wants to be king of the pirates. So that's always going to ground us no matter how far away from that goal we get. And so I think with TTRPG characters, it's like thinking about like, yes, you know, your class and your spells and all of that stuff. But I think grounding it in, but like what does Seraph want, like for New York by Night at the very least, which was like she wants to be free. And you know, at least having that as my starting point when it comes to how the game, you know, moves and changes, because like tabletop games, like they're gonna shift. Like what you do and the choices you make are gonna change the story in ways that you as a dungeon master won't expect, and as you as a player won't expect. But as long as you know what your character wants and is pursuing that, you can do that no matter where you find yourself in your character's journey. So I think like that's the thing that I always try to go back to when I'm like, why isn't this character feeling good in a game, or like what am I struggling with? It's usually because I haven't figured out like what is it that that character is actually seeking.
Ooh, goodness. Wow, I love that.
Yay,
And
good.
I do think that really grounding yourself on what is the end goal, and then filling yourself in throughout the journey that you're going to be taking with the rest of your campaign, I think is really special and fun.
Yeah, and there's also, sorry, one last thing on that. There's want and then there's need. And sometimes what your character wants is not necessarily the same thing as what they need. And what's really delicious, and I encourage every TTRPG player to do this, is like at some point sacrificing the thing you thought you wanted for the thing that you actually need.
Oh, it gets so muddy and fun. I love it.
It's
Oh,
so good.
Okay, so we've talked about a little bit of an intersection from writing professionally and then writing your TTRPG characters. What about the intersection of performance
Mm.
as kind of a static medium? You know, you're memorizing lines to be said for however long that performance is going
Yeah.
to be done, versus improv or even TTRPGs where you're
Hmm.
coming with it all on your own. You might, think about it throughout the day. This is how I think my character is going to react now that we know who the BBEG is. But
Hmm.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that then.
Great question. Yes. I think like one of the things I read this book a long time ago called Making It on Broadway, and it was a collection of essays by different Broadway performers at different stages in parts of your career. And one of the ones was like when you've been doing a show for like years. And especially if it's a very established Broadway show like Phantom or Cats or whatever, you're not really allowed because of the nature of like it's a product that people are paying to see. You're not really allowed to mess around with it. And so like actors have talked about like, yes, slotting in to playing Jean Valjean. And it's like, where can I go like inside of this mold where I can still make it my own, but like I can't make it too much my own because there's like an expectation of what this character is supposed to be. And I think with tabletop, it's like you end up with the opposite problem, which is like it could be anything. But I think that actually giving yourself limitations is super helpful. And so like when it comes to like yes, you can say anything, you can do anything, but like limiting that scope down so that it's actually a like a consumable amount of inputs your brain can handle of like, well, my character's alignment is this, so they're not going to do this series of choices over here because that doesn't align with them that way. Or it's like, well, my character might do this, but like if let's say a character died last session, it's like that's going to change how you interact with the game in this session. Like I think charting your character arc is always just like super helpful of like if you think about it like a television show, like all the TV shows we like, all the media we like, they do a good job of thinking about like, well, what is the character feeling and going through that's going to inform the decisions they're about to make and will continue to make. And so I think like the lessons I guess that we can take from both is like if you like Avatar, for example, like when spoiler alert for a 20-year-old animated show at this point, but like when Aang loses touch with the Avatar state because he didn't want to give up Katara and like the Fire Nation arc and like what that means of like being stuck and feeling not true to yourself, like finding themes in things you like and going like how can I take that and translate it into my character because like as you said, like theater is a static medium. We kind of know how that story is going to begin and end. And like going on that journey is nice, but like we always know where it's going to go. With a TTRPG, what's both exciting and a little scary about that is like, yeah, you only kind of get one shot per camp, per session to say what you want to say, to do what you want to do. So you want to take those opportunities. You don't want to leave anything on the table, but you also want to be cognizant of like, what is your personal story track? And like, are you like going back to the want all the time, which is like, are you in service of where your character is at in their emotional journey? Because it's like if you're ever feeling lost, it's probably because you've lost touch with whatever that is.
I like that a lot. And I have a question for you because
Yeah.
I know a handful of tabletop players who like to map out what they will look like from level 1 to level 20, like picking out
Ooh.
the feats that they're going to get, if they're going to get ability improvements, everything
Mm.
that they are possibly going to
Mm.
get. Are you the type of person to do that, or do you leave room for subtle changes that your
Mm.
character might experience?
I think you gotta leave room, in my opinion, because like I think people come to D&D for different reasons. People come to TTRPGs for different reasons. I think like I love story. That's like across my life, the theme that I have found is like I love story, I love characters. And so for me, I see the character sheet and the arcing journey as like an ungraying of the map. Like as you like, because let's say you get to level 7 and there was like a surprise attack and you weren't prepared for it, like maybe you take the alert feat, not because it's mechanically, I mean, yes, mechanically it's a good feat, but like, but maybe it's because your character's extra paranoid now, or they had a moment where like, I really love the Telltale Walking Dead games. And in the first game, there's a moment where Lee has a conversation with another character about Clementine, who's the little girl that Lee is taking care of. And he's like, you're going to have to teach her how to shoot, and you're going to have to cut her hair. Because, like, we're in a different stage now. Like, the danger's increasing, and you may not always be around to protect her. And so you need to give her the tools to make sure she's protected. And so, like, as you level up, I think it's important to, like, if you have a plan for your character and, like, you know what spells you want and all that stuff, like, that's great. But I think it's important to leave room for, like, the story as it's happening. Because, like, you might have a plan. You might think, oh, my character's going to have this accent, and then you get to the table and it's different. You might think, like, oh, my character's going to be an asshole, and then you get to the table and it's different. Like, you have to save that space. Because, like, the idea of a collaborative story is, like, yeah, you're not the only writer in this room. You know, you're getting input from other people. Like, they are going to change you and you are going to change them. And so it's like, you have to leave space. That's my opinion anyway.
Understandably so. So that sounds like a little bit of advice,
Mm.
giving folks that want to either do improv or just improve their improvisational skills in
Mhm.
tabletop. Would you say that you have any other pieces of advice on folks that maybe don't necessarily have that improv background or that performance background, but do want
Mhm.
to be a better collaborative storyteller at the table?
Absolutely. I think, like, I talk about this, like, all the time because I'm obsessed with this game, and I think it's the greatest game ever made. But I think that, like, you can't win D&D. Like, you can't win any
I mean,
TTRPG. Oh,
I think that when
oh,
you have friendship and you
that's exactly.
defeat the BBEG of scheduling,
Yes.
that is winning
That's the winning.
TTRPGs.
Exactly. That's the winning. And so I think, like, when people are afraid of being wrong, I think it gets in the way of what the game is meant to do, which is that, like, the reason why we roll dice is because failure is part of it. And I think that improv as a medium is really, really great at reminding you that failure is okay and that you learn more from failure than you do from success. And that failure can actually, I think, guide you to much more interesting places narratively and mechanically. Because and I think about this in movies too. Like, when I started out in writing and stuff, like, I had a really hard time putting my characters through hard things because it's like, you love your characters. You don't want them to struggle too much, and life is so stressful, but it's like, we love characters because they go through hard things. And so I think, like, dialing it back into improv, it's like, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to accept that, like, you will lose things and that you will change. And that, the yes and in that is, like, yes, I failed and I learned this thing from it, or my friend helped me, or I created an opportunity for somebody else to get a really good hit on the bad guy. Like, if that's at your core, doesn't matter if you're doing an accent, doesn't matter if your character's name is a very clever pun. It's like rooting it still in the heart of, like, I'm here to tell a story with my friends, and I might look silly, and that's great. And I might, say something and I didn't like the way it came out, and it's like, that's also fine. Like, if anything, it's all experience and it's only going to make you better. And you can't get better if you're not willing to open up your heart and be vulnerable.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the time, some folks get stuck on, I always want to succeed, but how are you able to progress if you're
Yes.
only winning? You're
Yes.
never going to learn unless you have that one episode where you got your butt kicked
Yes.
and you as a team had to talk about what went wrong. So I
Yes.
really do love that.
Absolutely.
So we touched on this, and by we, I mean you. You touched on this a little bit earlier on when you got started in tabletop, but I'd really love to hear about when it was just a hobby versus
Hmm.
when you decided to start making content. Because
Hmm.
as a hobby, being in the TTRPG space is amazing, but it's also a completely different world when you start making content with it.
100%. Yeah. So I started playing tabletop games very lightly in college. I had a boyfriend at the time who wanted to do the One Ring system. And so like him and it's like a Lord of the Rings system. It's allegedly very crunchy. I barely remember like the system itself, but like we hung out at somebody's house. My boyfriend at the time's roommate ran it, and it was fun and I liked it, but I remember like I kind of clashed with the dungeon master, the storyteller, because I was being like too meta, and he was like, "Don't do that." And I was just like, "I don't know what the rules are. Like, I'm just here to have a good time." And then I played like I think one session of what's the space version of Pathfinder? Starfinder?
I think so.
I think so too. So it was that. So we did like one session of that in someone's dorm room, and I don't even think we had dice. Like it was, we just had like pieces of paper. It was very silly. And then I didn't really play tabletop games again until I was working at Riot, and there was a group of people that I was friends with at Riot who got together and just like put together a D&D campaign. And so I was in that campaign for like a year and a half, and that was really fun. And then I left Riot, and then that campaign kind of fell apart. And then after that, it wasn't until I met Reed, and I was doing sketch comedy with her at the Pack, and she said she was a dungeon master, and I had a guy I was dating at the time who had never played D&D, and I was like, could you like run a one shot for me and this dude Clay? And she was like, yeah, and my sister can play. And so it was just the three of us, and she ran us through this really great one shot, and it was so fun. And so it was just like little times here and there, like it Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop games in general were something that kind of like happened to me, like that they kept coming to my life, but I didn't really know why. And then when I was doing the Nickelodeon writing program, that's when I was like, I was really missing improv, and I wanted to take classes again, but I wasn't sure if it was like the right thing for me to do at that time. And so I was recommended just play more Dungeons and Dragons. Like you like Dungeons and Dragons, like just go play more Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, okay, let me like see who's playing Dungeons and Dragons. And that's when I got reconnected with David Tilstra. And so David had been working on From Afar for a while at that point, and I was like, hey, like, could we just get lunch and you can tell me what you're working on? And like, I did this vampire show, but like, I'm trying to figure out like playing as a hobby, like figuring out what this space even is. And so we chatted for a while, and we just like kept getting lunch like once a month just to kind of catch up and talk about different things. I got into a home game with Reed, and then I got into another home game with her partner Tyler. And so I was like playing a lot, and I was like, this is so fun, and I love this so much. And like there is a desire in me to like make more content in this realm. And then David told me about, like his dream to make his own show. And so I was like, well, yeah, like I think that you got to make your own show. Like I think like we can't wait around for, the pre-existing or pre-established shows to kind of pick us out of the pack, because it's like that's not giving yourself the greatest odds. And so then, he started spinning up Story Quest, and then he brought me on, and we shot our first season last year, which was a wild, like, making anything is so hard. You know this. And I think that it does change your relationship with tabletop games when you start to see them as like an entertainment content medium rather than just like a game you play with your friends. But I have been very grateful and have learned a lot, and I'm very passionate about Story Quest and the other projects that I'm involved with. And like, yeah, I don't know. I'm again, like, I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Like what has opened your eyes a little bit seeing tabletop games not just as a game, but also as like
Did
this
you
other thing.
just did you just Uno reverse me? Um, that's a really good question that I was not prepared to answer today. Wow. You
I
know,
talk about this literally all the time. It's like the only thing I think about.
I think when I saw my first D&D charity stream,
Mm,
and I don't know, I had recently gotten into D&D. It was 2019, and I've always been nonprofit focused. That's
yeah.
been my career for the last decade. I always joke, the only decade, ha ha ha. I'm still young. Um, but
Yeah,
I
you're a
remember
fetus. You're a
I
baby.
remember when that happened, I was like, oh my God, I can raise money, which is something I'm very passionate about, with this new hyperfixation of mine that I am
Yes.
incredibly invested with in only a very short period of time. Spoiler alert, it's been going on for the last 5+ years now, and I don't think it's going to stop, so that's
Good.
cool.
Good.
So when that flip happened in my brain, I was like, oh yes, this is it's also for fun, but it's also for content, the
Yeah.
content being charitable. And the
Yeah,
rest is
absolutely.
history.
Yes. And I think like off of that too, it's like I don't necessarily like when I think about the consumer of tabletop content because I had a random interview a long time ago for a job at the Game Show Network. And I didn't end up getting that job, but one of the things they mentioned in the interview is like, we know who watches the Game Show Network, and we've personified all of our analytics into like Pam. Pam is 45 years old. She lives in one of the following states. She's a mom. She's home from the hours of, 10 to 3, like that kind of thing. And I was like, God, it's so interesting. And it's like, we make shows for Pam. And I think what's interesting about tabletop games is like, I don't necessarily know, like, who is our Pam? Like, who's the person who's like, of all the things I watch, the thing I watch the most is tabletop content. Cause it's like, I imagine the things that I've thought about in my brain is like it's someone who probably works like a graphic design job or like a coding job, somebody who has like a task that takes a long time to do,
They're in
that
front
they
of the
need
computer
they're in
for
front of the
sure.
computer for a long time and they probably have a second monitor or like headphones or something. Like I think artists, graphic designers, coders, like yeah, like computer, like long form task people. And I'm like, we make shows for them. I don't know what their name is. I haven't figured out what their name is yet. But yeah, it's like it's just so interesting because, and I think about the same thing with video game streamers as well, where I'm like, what is this thing in our little brains that makes us want to watch some random guy we've never met play Resident Evil with the headset on? Like, what is that? But like, we have it. Like, and so for tabletop, it is so interesting because I'm like, I have so much fun playing. I have so much fun thinking about characters, and clearly there are people who enjoy watching that process as well. But I'm like, I would just want to know who they are. Like, I'm still. It's like this is my hyperfixation. I'm like, who is it?
So, Mayana, you have talked a lot then about having this be industry versus hobby for tabletop. And I'm gonna do another thing. Can you give folks a piece of
Mm.
advice on going from
uh,
hobby to industry, or
yeah.
not necessarily even industry, but content, dipping their toes into the industry?
Absolutely. Man, I have a lot of thoughts on this. One, there do not have an expectation of what your success metrics are going to look like. I think that we are, like brass tacks, we're in a very oversaturated D&D marketplace right now. So if you're making a show, be really honest with yourself about what your intentions are with that show, because I think if your hope is to be the next Critical Role, the next Dimension 20, the next whatever, like that's probably not going to happen, just like statistically, right? So like what can you do instead, releasing that expectation from yourself? What stories can you tell in this medium that you're excited to tell? What systems can you play in that excite you to play in? And what is the unique thing that you as an individual can offer that no one else in the space can offer? Because I think that like Weston's a great example. Like he's Arcane Anthems. He's a musician who loves TTRPGs. So like that translates into not just talking about tabletop games, but like writing songs about tabletop games because that is his expertise into that interest. And so I think like we have a lot of people who love the game, but like besides that, what is the unique thing that you can offer? If it's comedy, if it's cosplay, if it's food, if it like whatever it is, it's like think about your angle and be very do it in a sustainable way. That's the biggest thing is like we all have I mean you are going to be doing a panel very soon about this exact topic
I
of
think you mean
burnout.
we are going to
Oh,
be doing a panel
we,
soon.
yes, we are going to be doing a panel very soon about this. I don't know when this comes out, but like, like burnout is so real. And I think that we all have a dream, right? Of like the day that we get to quit our day job and do this full time. But until that day arises, you have to do it in a way that allows you to like feed yourself and gives you enough time to like be with your friends and enjoy your hobby divorced from content because it's so easy to, let it become so all consuming that you like forget why you even like this game in the first place. And again, going back to like, it's all tying together, going back to what your character want is, but you are the character. It's like, what is your goal in making this content? Who are you trying to connect with? What is the impact you're trying to have on the people who watch it? This is a little bit like it's off topic, but it's on topic. I had an ex who was a stand-up comedian, and I remember that myself and a friend we went to go see their show, and we were like, okay, like it was okay, And so we sat down with them, and we were like, hey, we really believe in you, but like we want to make sure that like you are doing the things that you need to do to be the best comedian you can be. And one of the things I asked them was like, when you do comedy, are you doing comedy because you want to make people laugh, or are you doing comedy because you want people to think you're funny? And they were like, well, can it be both? And I'm like, no, it can't actually, because I think providing a service and expecting validation, I think make the process impossible, right? You have to be giving something of yourself. You have to be thinking about the experience of the person who's watching you. And I saw an Instagram graphic that just like blew my mind, which is people don't come to a show to see you. People come to a show to see themselves. And so they want to see, right? I was like, oh, it like blew my mind. I was like, absolutely. It's like I love the creators that I love, not because I know them personally, but because they give me something that I feel is a part of who I am, or like validate a worldview that I have, or make me laugh, or like show me something I've never seen before, but I go, that's really cool. I like that thing. That's neat. And so I think, yeah, if you want to get into making content in tabletop space, in anything, you have to be really honest in your heart about what the intentions are with making that content, because it's going to become a huge part of your life. And if you're not ready for that, don't do it. Free
Mm-hmm.
yourself of the
Yes.
mind prison.
No, no, not the mind prison. Okay, well let's rewind a little bit before we get to the mind prison. As we've said multiple times, you are incredibly busy. So I really want to hear how you're able to manage it all. Is it spreadsheets? Is it calendar invites? What how do you manage it time wise? And then what are ways that you show up for yourself after a busy week, after a busy month? I know you're doing the Mistborn series. That's a way that you're taking time for yourself. But what else?
I'm getting called out on Maine here. I think that's one of the areas of my life that I struggle with the most. I think that I am someone who's very invested in giving of myself to other people to a level where sometimes I forget to take care of myself. And so that's something I've been working on. Weirdly, coming off of the convention that I just went to, I had weirdly like nothing in the evenings for 3 days in a row, which never happens. And so I saw like an advice graphic somewhere on Instagram or something that was like schedule your downtime like you would schedule a meeting. And so can I curse on this show? Okay, cool. So I have a stay the fuck at home event, which I put on any nights where I don't have like a thing that I have to do. And sometimes things will come up and I have to cancel it. But like for the most part, I see that block of time and I go like, that is time that I have to dedicate to like taking care of myself, because one, I can't give of myself if I have nothing to give. And rest is so important. And I don't think I really internalized that until like weirdly this week. I'm a very go kind of person, and I think I've been told that I sometimes thrive in a chaotic environment. because it's like if you're just moving so fast, you like don't notice what's hurting, But I think like getting a moment to slow down and like I'm a big fan of turning off big light. I love ambient lighting. I love like lamp. Big fan of lamp, candles, baths. These one popsicles from Trader Joe's, which are a creamsicle mango popsicle with vanilla ice cream inside. And here's the thing: you've had a creamsicle popsicle before, not like this. This one's different. This one is special, and it's only at Trader Joe's, and I'm obsessed with it. But I think, like, yeah, setting aside time for self-care is very important. In general, how I keep it all together, I'm a big fan of a calendar invite. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. I did a calendar invite for myself for this exact interview. Like visually seeing where my time is going is super, super important. I don't know how people I think I used maybe when I was less busy, I used to be like, I have a thing on Thursday and I have a thing on Friday. But like
I don't know how
one
people raw dog the day, the
I,
year, the
I have no idea. I
blows
mean,
my mind.
I think those people are also maybe on some level emotionally okay with like missing an appointment, which I'm not. So like
Same.
more power to them, I guess. But yes, I think like the calendar, I love my Google Calendar, and also like I work a bunch of different kind of things at the same time. So like condensing all of my calendars together and just kind of getting a gradient situation of like, okay, from this to this and this to this. That's super, super helpful for me to not lose track of anything. And there will still be days where I'll be like, oh my God, I forgot to like write that down. But usually I'm pretty good at catching it. But yeah, I think like self-care is definitely a journey that I'm working on. Trying to also dedicate myself to like consistent exercise and movement, because like your body is your temple and you got to make sure that you take care of it. And if you can't dedicate time to that, I mean, I don't know. It's like at the end of the day, and I have to remember this, it's like it's not narcissistic to care about yourself. And it's not narcissistic to take time for yourself to make sure that you're okay. And that if you have a moment where you can't give of yourself to other people, that you take that step back to give yourself that space, because otherwise you're going to say something you don't mean, or you're going to be like hurtful to someone in a way that you don't intend. Like, yeah. So I'm on that journey right now. I think like overall, I definitely need to work on more consistent habits of self-care. So that's my little project.
Well, you know what? I can appreciate your honesty there. I can appreciate that a lot. Um, we're going to do a bit of a
Do it.
tone switch.
Hmm.
This time focusing a little bit more on Story Quest.
Oh, hell yeah.
Something that I really love about Story Quest is that y'all really are focusing on cinematic and heartwarming stories, and that leaves a lot of room for amazing storytelling, while also something that you do is keeping the episodes short.
Yes.
So Pam, if she has a
Yeah.
45-minute grocery trip, she
Hmm.
can listen to an episode while she's at the store before she gets
Absolutely.
home. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the decisions to focus on shorter episodes, to focus on keeping it heartwarming and cinematic.
Absolutely. I think like we internally talk a lot about like we respect your time and we understand that not everybody has hours at a stretch to be at their computer where they can consume this kind of content. And we want it to be accessible. That's the biggest thing, right? Because it's like we love Dungeons and Dragons and we love tabletop games and we love sharing this type of storytelling with people. And we know that it can be very daunting to show, like, I imagine like there's been a friend who's shown an episode of an actual play they love to a friend and it's 3.5 hours long and they're like, I can't do that. I can't do that. Like, I'm sure it's great. Love that for you, friend, but like can't do it. I imagine the same thing's true with Brandon Sanderson's books. Like, and I think like I am braving I'm ready. I'm emotionally preparing myself for the what is it, 1,800 pages of the last Stormlight book or whatever. I'm building my bridge to it. But I think that yeah, we really wanted it to be accessible, and we really wanted it to be something that people could watch and be able to come back to and not feel like, oh, it's gonna take me too long to catch up, like I'm it's too far away, like all that kind of stuff. So that was the big one. And then with cinematic and heartwarming, like that's just sort of like the realm we all live in as people who enjoy certain types of stories. I mean, anime is a huge touch point for us, and Disney is a huge touch point for us. And I think like there is a tendency, and totally understand why, like fantasy is a very dark, intense, big, epic thing. But I think for me personally, like I did not get on the Game of Thrones train when it was on. I just missed it. I woke up late that day and the train had already left, and then I never got on it. But I think like that intense, like political, it's cold in the mountains and and like that's great if you love that shit. That's just like not where I live. I much prefer things that have kind of a mix of tones. Like my favorite video game is Dragon Quest VIII, which I don't know if you've ever played it, but it's Akira Toriyama who did all of the artwork for Dragon Ball Z. So it's like these very over the top character designs. And it's a very like classically epic hero story, but it's also very funny and it's really quirky. And a lot of the like, instead of the buff for your strength being like strength, it's called oomph. You know, like just like silly shit like that. So I love kind of mixing those tones together. And I think that's something that the Story Quest folks all sort of have in common is we can settle in to like that serious emotional thing, but we understand that like to get to those moments, and I think the same thing's true in One Piece and a lot of anime, is like to get to those very like, why am I crying all of a sudden, you have to have a bunch of other silly stuff to kind of like lure people into almost like a false sense of security where
People
you're like,
need
I'm
to
laughing.
invest and they have to have a reason to invest. And without those
Exactly.
heartwarming moments, they're not going to.
Exactly. And I think that again, it all ties back into the same thing, which is like, I respect your time as a viewer and I want you to have fun and I want you to enjoy this and I want you to get a full story. And I don't want you to have to work against a lot of obstacles for you to get to that, because I understand that we don't have a like, and also we're very new, you know, like we're nobodies, right? Like we are just trying to share a story that we had really a fun time telling with people and hoping they like it, you know, and we're not under any false pretenses about like assuming that like just because we made it people will watch it. Like we're very grateful and we're very appreciative of like any engagement we have from people who've liked it. The most meaningful one for us, I think, was at Comic-Con, which was we had a very sweet person come up to us after the show, which was like, I was really scared to try Dungeons and Dragons because like I was afraid that, you know, I wasn't going to be good enough at role play or I wasn't going to understand the spells, but it's like, you guys were having so much fun that like, I want to try it now. And like, that's at the end, that's why we do it. That's like, that's why I wake up in the morning. It's like, yeah, don't be afraid. Like it can feel so insurmountable, especially if like you're trying to get into it and you see these like professional actors and professional voice actors who are amazing and so talented, but like have set a really high bar for the entertainment value of this content. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's still a game and you can play it with your friends. And like, if we can help people feel that, that's all we wanted.
Oh, that touches me right here. I love that.
Yay, good. That's the warming
And
of the heart.
also, it was such a fun, like being there to watch the Comic Con show in London, Ohio was
In London, Ohio.
chef's
Yeah.
kiss. Oh,
Oh, thank you.
so we have the heartwarming and the lighthearted stories that you're a part of, like Story Quest and The Wandering Path. And then we
Yes.
also have some more intense stories, like New York by Night and Project Ghostlight. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to hear what kind of stories you like to tell more, or what kind of
Ooh.
projects really stand out to you and excite
Mhm.
you.
Ah, that's such a good question. I think like I can live in a dark world. Like again, I'm a trained thespian. So I read all the classics. I read all the Shakespeare's, and I think that as I've gotten older, I've really grown to appreciate like what Shakespeare was doing with that shit and like the themes he was exploring. And so living in a dark world or like playing a World of Darkness game or like playing Vampire, like it is very intense, But what I think is kind of interesting too is like I've had some very weirdly hilarious moments in my like vampire home games because it's so intense. And so like the moments of levity are just like a big release because it's just like, oh my God, like we're killing people, I'm a killer Bella, like we're all up in there. But I think personally, the stories that I prefer to tell, I think I do like where the players arcs are like integrated more deeply into the story. I have a friend's home game that I'm in for the Witchlight, Beyond the Witchlight, and when she sat down with me to talk about characters, I was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about playing a warlock," and she was like, "If you're thinking about playing a warlock already," she's like, "Might I recommend this particular subclass because it's actually like pretty plot relevant?" And I was like, "She's like, no worries if you don't want to do that." I'm like, "No, of course I want to do that. Like, why wouldn't I want to do something that's going to service a better story?" So I think like, and Witchlight is very interesting, and like the Feywild is such a wild, no pun intended, setting of like the moral ambiguities and the dubiousness. I think, yeah, overall, I like stories where the characters are challenged in some way to maybe think about a problem or a type of person that they assume is one way in a different way. I do draw a lot of inspiration from Final Fantasy because I think Final Fantasy is another one, and Square Enix does a great job of this in general, where like these worlds are so crazy that like you have no choice but to go like, yep, like, yeah, I'm crying. There's a cactus with 1,000 needles. There's a bird that's named after chocolate. Like we're out here. We be out here. And I think that like I guess it's like I like an eclectic mix of tones. I like a world. I like, kind of futuristic fantasy. I like technology. I like having characters interacting with the world in a way where it's like, well, why do we take for granted that structures are the way that they are? Yeah. So I think I can't quite pin it into a specific genre because I think I genre to me is like a fun sandbox, but because it creates like nice structural limitations for the types of stories you can tell. But I'm open to everything. I think like whatever makes my story brain go buzz. That's the story I like. It kind
Okay.
of varies. Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
Hmm.
I've got some bad news. I only have two questions left
Oh
before
my
we move
god.
on from the interview portion.
Oh my
But I'd
gosh.
love to hear from your perspective a human character that you've played in D&D or any
Hmm.
TTRPG that has made your brain go buzz.
Oh my god. Human
I
character. I
feel
mean,
like
yes.
humans get a bad rep, you know?
I
Like
completely agree. I
people
completely
think it's
agree.
boring. If you can be a tiefling or if you can have wings, why would you want to be a human? And so it's
Hmm.
special, you know? A human
Absolutely.
person playing a human character. So tell
Oh
me
my
about one
god.
of yours that you've really enjoyed.
Absolutely. So going off of that, I have been playing a lot of human characters recently because again, we take for granted we have all these books and all this material and we just kind of like forget to read it sometimes. And so like I finally looked at the description for human in the Dungeons and Dragons books, and it's like humans feel a unique pressure in a world where people can live for thousands of years to make a mark in 100. And I was like, oh my god, like, and that's why they get the heroic inspiration feed at the beginning of every day because they got to make something of themselves. One of my favorite human characters I played recently is Daphne McCracken. She was a thief in a train heist one shot that I played with my friends. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah. Daphne was her stage name. Her real name's Crescent. But basically, yeah, she was like cosplaying as a high society lady to like get on this train. But then she realized there was another thief on the train, and the two of them were like, okay, cool. We can like kind of like we can like be thieves with each other. Like we can like engage and like be the little scrappy like how'd we get here, look at the two of us making it of this world, this crazy train world. And I really enjoyed playing her because like I don't really play a lot of rogues or thieves or anything like that. I don't know why. It's just like the play style just doesn't like translate in my brain. But she didn't have a lot of things she could do. And so like because I think we are like level 3 or level 4. And I think that it made me really think about problem solving in a different way of like how can I get through this without brute forcing it, without a lot of weapons. Like all I have is my whip, because that's her last name's McCracken, and like and her little tenacity. And I think like I grew very attached to her. I only played her the once. And then the other one that I really like is Cassidy, who's a little cowgirl. And she is in a very like tense, dark world where there's like a lot of like not a lot of good, upstanding people anymore. And she is a paladin, or like paladin, skin on a cowboy, and really still believes in trying to do the right thing, even when it's really hard to do, and being put up against, like big, intense forces that are much bigger than she is as just a little human woman. But the positive impact that she can make on the people in her immediate vicinity. I'm a big, as a human person, Mayanna, the human person, I think that like we really overlook soft skills as like a society, like the ability to connect with people and emotionally help each other. And so I think I do lean a lot into, especially my human characters, being the type of person who can connect and break through that like wall that we create for ourselves of like, this is just how it is. And it's like, well, not necessarily. So I love playing humans. I obviously like the fantasy species are also really cool, but there's something really interesting about like, because it's like if you, Jess, or I were just in a fantastical world, but we were just us, it's like, well, we still gotta try to do something. Like we
No,
still
we're
gotta
not
be
just
a
gonna
part of
like
it.
lay over and die.
Yeah,
Jeez.
exactly. Exactly.
Very
Yeah.
cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, last one. I would love for you to weigh in on the
Mm.
philosophical debate of tabletop implying the existence of table bottom.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So I mean, yes, but the idea of table bottom is that's where you tell all your secrets. That's where you go like, would you excuse me for one moment? And then you go and you're like, what do we do? Our wives are here and we didn't think they were gonna be. That's table bottom to me.
Incredible. Thank you so much. With our wives are here being said, we're going to move on to our game portion.
Ba, 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 da, 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 ba, ba.
All right, my friend, are you ready to play our game? You have
I'm so
picked
ready.
20 questions. I am going to go out on a limb and think that most people understand how to play, but just in case folks don't, Biana gets 20 questions to ask me yes or no. Besides, is it a person, place, or thing at the very beginning to figure out what sort of thing I have thought of. So,
Mm,
anytime.
okay. I'm gonna start. Is it a place?
No.
Okay. Is it a person?
No.
Okay. Is it a thing?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a weapon?
No.
Okay. Is it a is it can it fit in a box this size?
I'm gonna like
6
6 by 6 inches.
by 6, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
that was a good one.
Thank you. Is it round?
Fully circular. No.
Okay. It has round parts. Okay. Is it soft?
Mm, can
Tricky?
you define soft for me?
Squishy.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Is it is it a fidget toy?
No.
Okay. It fits like this. It's squishy. Is it is it a toy?
No.
Okay.
Also,
Is
I
it
see that you're making marks. Are you
Yeah, I'm
tracking?
counting.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah.
Because I
I got
started and then I
so
stopped and then
no,
I
you're good.
started again and I was like, I think that she's asked 9. I don't know.
Yeah. We're at literally 9, it's about to be 10. Is it edible?
Yes.
Okay. That's exciting. It's squishy and it's edible. Is it one of those like anime bread things with jam inside?
It is not.
Okay. Okay. Squishy and it's this and you can eat it. Is it a fruit?
Okay, let's go back to the
Okay.
definition of fruit. Or are you
Oh.
asking the philosophical way or the as
Oh.
we know it way?
Um, is it like I get so it I mean a tomato like it's like whatever has seeds in it, like that's the
Then yes, it
okay. It has
is a
seeds in it.
fruit. Yeah, well,
Okay.
just that could be your question. Does it have seeds
Okay.
in it? Yes.
Okay.
I
Is it a tomato?
no. It
Okay.
was going to be at first, and then I thought of
Mm.
a silly story that I have to share, and so I changed it to the thing.
Is it a melon?
No.
Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Is it a durian?
I don't even know what that is.
Okay, so it's not a durian. We're at 15.
Oh,
This is scary. This is scary. We're in the final stretch here.
do you want a hint?
Yes.
Okay. So you asked if it was a fruit, and I asked for the definition,
Right.
and then you found out that it had seeds.
It
So
had seeds in it.
I would think along those lines.
Is it an eggplant?
No.
Okay. Oh my God. Oh man. I'm getting stumped by fruits. Is it because it's not an obvious fruit. It's one of them there middle ground fruits.
Well,
Yeah.
I feel like all of the vegetable fruits that I can think of have seeds in them.
I
So
know. It's
are
it's it's
all
dumb.
are
It's
all
dumb.
vegetables just fruits?
Well, some vegetables don't have seeds because like carrots don't have seeds and like celery doesn't have
Okay.
seeds. I don't know. But like more of them have seeds than don't have seeds. Is it a squash?
It's that it's really
It's
small. Remember, I guess
really
a
small.
squash could be small, but I'm thinking of
Okay.
large
Is it a
squashes.
cucumber?
No, but you're a lot
Pickle?
closer.
Is it pickle?
Do
We're at,
you
we're like two away.
It's not a pickle.
Okay, but we're closer with cucumber. Is it a zucchini?
No.
Oh my God.
Do you want one final hint?
Yes.
You were close because of the color.
Oh, it's green. Okay. Man. Oof. This is killing me. It's green. Is it?
You got this. I believe in you.
Is it? Oh man, I don't think I got it. I'm gonna. Let me think. Is it a jalapeno?
You are so close.
Okay. That was 20. What is it?
Thank you for being honest. It was a
Of
green
course.
bell pepper.
Green bell pepper. Oh. Okay. Tell me the story. Tell me the story.
So the reason that I picked this instead of tomato is because a couple weeks back, I had a dream that you invited me to your home, and I was like, "Oh, what a cute little home! It's picturesque on the outside." And I'm like, oh, living the millennial dream. Mayanna in this dream has a home. I love this for her. Amazing. And I get inside, and everything is so normal until I see that Dream Mayana is obsessed with peppers.
That's
There are
hilarious.
microscopes that are like studying seeds and slices of peppers, and you have pots of peppers everywhere, and there are peppers cut, and there are like
Oh my
drawings of
God.
peppers, and I'm like, what is going on?
That's so
And
funny.
you were
I
just like, yeah,
love
welcome to my
that.
home. This is my totally normal home.
Oh my God. That's funny because I think like it's that, but with action figures in my actual apartment.
Incredible. But you're not slicing them up to
No,
look
no,
at
no,
them
no,
with a
no, no.
microscope.
Just lots of toys everywhere. So just replace peppers with toys. They're everywhere.
Incredible. I love
That's
it. Well,
so
I do
funny.
have to
I love
ask you
that.
not to eat the action figures either,
I don't. I
for
will not
safety
eat the action
concerns.
figures. I will not eat the
Incredible.
action figures. That's amazing. I love that. That's amazing.
Incredible. Well, my friend, now that we have finished our game, I would love for you to chat about all of the upcoming projects you have that you'd
Oh my
like to
God.
share with folks. Obviously, folks need to go to the StoryQuest YouTube and get caught up with that right now. I know there's episode 6 as of today that we're recording this, but I'm sure
Mhm.
another one or two will be released before this episode comes out. So go
Mhm.
there, but then also go and support the other amazing works that Mayanna is about to share.
Thank you so much. Yes, please check out Story Quest. We're so, so proud of it. Check out The Wandering Path, which is a podcast that I'm a part of. That's on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Keep an eye out for Project Ghostlight updates. Those will be on Instagram, on Project Ghostlight. We also have a Patreon. I've got another project that I can't talk about, but I'm very excited about it. And hopefully an announcement will be made soon, but I don't know when this comes out, so I can't say anything, but I'm really excited about it. And then, oh my God, please wishlist Dispatch on Steam. It is a video game that I am a writer on. It's about superheroes. And I'm so, so proud of it. The trailer is out on YouTube. You can watch it. But yeah, please, we are a small studio. But we really love this game and I'm really passionate about it and everyone's working really hard on it. So please wishlist Dispatch on Steam.
Okay, as soon as we get off this call, I'm gonna go look it up. Dispatch sounds amazing.
I think you're gonna flip.
Congratulations. Hell
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
Well, that all sounds amazing, and I am really looking forward to continue supporting all of the amazing work that you do because you are a light in the tabletop community. And I'm a little sad because we're almost to the end. But before we get there, we're going to go to a quick break to show some announcements and upcoming tabletop initiatives that we have. So stick around for those, and then you'll hear the good morning of the day. Hi, friends. Join us on April 5th, 6th, 7th, and 9th for TTRPG charity streams raising funds for Trans Lifeline. On April 5th at 12 p.m. PDT, we'll be playing Never Stop Blowing Up, where the dinosaurs fight back against the asteroid that took them out. On April 6th at 12 p.m. PDT, you can watch us playing a 10 Candles game set in the forest. On April 7th at 5 p.m. PDT, we'll be playing a Dimension Jumping Sagas game. And on April 9th at 5 p.m. PDT, we'll be playing a continuation of a January D&D charity stream where we accidentally turned our colleague Barb into a pumpkin, and this time we're definitely going to depumpkinify her. The first $250 raised will be matched by Bogus Cheesecake, and we'll have a giveaway for a shirt from Session Zero Clothing. And in other news, you can now follow Tabletop Humans on Blue Sky, where I share information about the show as well as other cool projects that folks are doing in the tabletop space. Which leads me to my last announcement. If you'll be in Anaheim this weekend, March 28th through 30th for WonderCon, be sure to check out my two panels, both of which feature Mayanna and other amazing folks. At noon on Saturday, you can watch Roll for Initiative, tabletop creators battling against imposter syndrome and burnout, and at 6:30 on Saturday, you can watch Exploring Identity through character creation in TTRPGs. I hope to see you there. Okay, Mayanna, my friend, it is time. Are you ready to give the good morning of the day?
Yes. Okay, I'm ready. Do I read it or do you read
So
it?
you read it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, here I go. Because I wrote it down, so I don't want to mess it up. All right. Good morning to everyone whose favorite Final Fantasy protagonist is Tara Branford from Final Fantasy VI, and to them only.
You heard it here, folks. I'm just the human, and this is Mayanna from Story Quest. And together we're saying good morning to everyone whose favorite Final Fantasy protagonist is Tara Branford from Final Fantasy VI, and to them only.
Yas.